So I first started with the navigation. However, I'm speeding this up because even though I made my own navigation / navbar, I ended up realizing that using Framer's inbuilt tools was better. So halfway through this, I do end up changing it to Framer's inbuilt navigation because it's already responsive as well. Now we're going to add the hero section of our website. So we're going to add a frame first. We'll call it hero. We'll then add our text. Then we're going to choose our hero section and we're going to change the height of it to fit content. Then we're going to go grab our container, which we already have set up in the navigation. So this container, as the name implies, is a container for our content. So we want it to be up to a maximum width of 1200, as you can see on the screen, so that anything inside it does not exceed 1200. And we're going to put all of our hero content inside this container. We're going to change the container direction to stack, and then we're going to get rid of the background color of our hero because obviously we don't want it to be blue. Now we're going to add a darker shade to our large hero text and we're going to make it 64 in size. Decrease the letter spacing. I like to make big titles like this with less letter spacing. It's just a stylistic choice. I think it looks better. Next up, we're going to put our going live later text into a frame like so. And then what we're going to do is we're going to actually add a border to this and get rid of the background so it looks like a pill. We're going to choose fit content again for height and width. And then we're going to get rid of the fill. And then we're going to add a border. We'll add a color to this border. We'll make it 20% like so. We'll add some padding to the pill. And then add some radius as well. I actually end up adjusting the padding here to have a bit more aesthetically. I think it looks better. We'll add a shadow to our pill, a very, very subtle shadow, black with 5%. Then we'll change the color, the text color of our pill. We're going to actually make this a gradient. Add our two colors, going from like a deep blue to a light blue, and then we can rotate the gradient. Give our pill a name, just call it pill of course. I actually end up changing the border color. I think the purple looked a bit too purpley. Make it look a bit more neutral. Change the font size. And then we're going to make it a component. And then when we make something a component, later on, we can use that same component in different parts of the website. It keeps the same styling. All we're going to end up doing is changing the text later on when we do reuse the component. Next up, we'll change the color of our hero sort of description subheading. Change the size, change the font. And then we're going to make a stack of our hero text. We'll rename it hero text. Very important, of course, that we name and organize everything as much as we can. Change the height and the width to fit content. Change the gap to 20 so that there's a bit more spacing between the elements, and add padding above. We'll add 100 for now. And then we want to give our hero sort of title a max width. So I'm going to give it a max width of 700. And then I'm going to change our hero text to fill and make sure that the width is 1FR. We'll center align the text like so. And then we'll actually change the width of our hero title to be a bit narrower. We'll change it from 700 to 650. Next up, we're going to go to insert, and then we're going to drag and drop the input. So we're going to use Framer's default sort of input functionality here. move our input into our hero container, and then we can start styling it. So we'll make sure the font matches the rest of our website. Change the font size to 14. Change the subscribe button or the input submit button to 14 as well. Change the color of the button. Make it semi-bold. And then change the text as well to register. We'll change the padding of our button. Then we're going to change the width of our input because I think it looked a bit too narrow. And then we'll change the radius as well. We can change the placeholder to whatever we like. I'm going to put enter your email here. And then we're going to style our input as well. We'll make it white. Add a border, just a very subtle border, black at 10%. Add a shadow, again a very subtle shadow. Change it to 10%, change it to 5% actually for the shadow. Then we're going to add a stack to our input. Name that stack to the register form. Add some padding to it. Want some padding above. We'll add some padding below as well because I realized that you couldn't see the shadow below the input form and the button. We'll also add some padding left and right. Adjust the width again. We'll adjust it to 400 like so. Looks good. Now we're going to add our next section. So we'll make the actual page bigger so that we can see what we're working with. We're going to drag and drop our image for the hero. We're going to move that image into our container. We'll add a stack to this image. Make sure it has some padding. Change the height and the width. Change the padding again. I think 100 was a bit too much. And we'll rename it, of course, browser image. Next up, we're actually going to copy our hero because we want to add the next section. And the next section is actually going to be similar to our hero. We want sort of the pill, we want the title, the subtext. We'll just remove the input form and the image. So let's change the text of our pill to next level features. So yeah, this section will be showing some features of our product. We'll change the title. Then we're going to change letter spacing and we're going to change the font size because we don't want it to be as big as our hero section. Change the subtext as well, remove the input and remove the browser image as well. Next up, we're going to go to insert and we're going to insert grid from Framer's pre-built sections. Remove the background of the grid, change the width of the grid, and then we'll remove 2 rows of the 4 rows that are included with the grid because we only need 2 rows for this. We'll start reorganizing the content. So we'll move the larger row because I want 1 large row and 1 thin row. And yeah, you can change the width of these, but yeah, because they're already done, I just move them around. And then we're going to move the image and the content around as well. And we're going to change the content of the grid like so. We're going to change the font as well, of course. And now we're going to change the width of the text in each of our rows. So we're going to give them a max width of 300 for the description, and then we're going to drag and drop one of our images for the features. We can put it into the image stack and remove the fill of the image stack. We're going to add a border to our row. Add a radius. And then add some padding to our text as well. There we are. That's looking pretty good already. Then we're going to copy that over to our other row as well. Going to change the text in here. And then we're going to drag and drop our other image and move that into the image container. And we're going to again add a border to this to make it the same as our other feature. And we can see the image doesn't actually align to the bottom of the card, so we're going to give it some padding to align it to the bottom of the card. And there we go. That looks pretty good. We'll rename our grid to large features. Remove some padding above it. Now we're actually going to copy our large features because we're going to have another section called small features, which will have 3 columns rather than 2 large columns and then 1 small column. And we're going to get rid of the larger column and just have the 1 smaller column, and then we'll copy that over once we have our content in there. So now we're going to start adjusting the content, rename it to feature. Remove the border, remove the image as well. We're going to get rid of the padding of our text. And we're going to copy in our text. Then we're going to drag and drop our little icon for this feature. But we want the icon to go alongside the heading text. So we're first going to change the size of the heading text to 16, change the letter spacing. And then we're going to choose the icon and the heading text and make it a stack. And then we're going to change the direction of our stack. We're going to change the height to fit content. I'm going to change the gap to 15, like so. And then I realized actually our large features, I need to change the padding because it has 60 padding all the way around, when really we want padding above and below, because the small features were just a bit too far away from the large features. There was a bit too much of a gap. So we're going to change the padding of the small features as well. Change it to 0 at the top, 0 at the bottom for now, and then we'll leave it at 40 for left and right. And we're going to copy our small features, change the icons, change the text for them very quickly. And there we are. That is our features section ready to go. Next up, we're going to insert a new section, our call to action section. We'll insert one of Framer's pre-built sections. I like the look of this one. And then we're going to copy our container from our hero into this section. Having the container just makes things a lot easier, so we're going to just copy everything into that. Drag and drop it. There we are. Then we're going to remove the overlay. Remove the background image of this section. Change the text very quickly, add a gradient. And then change our buttons as well. So we'll add a stack to this actually so that we can organize it better. Change the gap to 20 and then change the width and the height to fit content. Change the height of the section to also fit content, and then we'll rename it to call to action. We want to change the container width to 100%. And then change the fill. We'll add a gradient to this and rotate the gradient as well. Change the color. We're actually going to reduce the opacity to 5% for each of the colors. Because we just want it to look very subtle, then we're going to add a border, add a radius, change the padding, and then we're going to copy the button from our header because we want the button to be in our call to action section. Remove the other buttons. There we are. That is our sign up button ready to go. We'll change the text in here as well to register. Then we'll add another button saying learn more, and we'll change the color of this button because we don't want it to be overtaking our main primary button. It's looking much better. Our call to action section is nearly ready. We're going to stack our text and the call to action so that we can have less of a gap between the text, and then we can have more of a gap between the buttons and the text. I think visually this just looks better. Change the padding of our call to action container, and there we are. That's ready to go. Next up, we're going to add a footer, and we're actually going to use Framer's grid layout to add this footer. We'll select it, put it in like so. We're going to change the columns to 4. We'll remove 2 of the rows. Make sure the row itself is 1. Change the width of our grid to 1200. Remove the rows for now because we'll be copy and pasting them over, and then we can start changing the elements inside of our columns. So we're going to drag and drop our logo first, because the first column of our footer will have just our logo. We'll of course rename the section footer, remove the background color. We want to make sure our logo is aligned to the left. Copy and paste the row, and then we'll start changing the content of this specific column. So we're going to add some links in here. So we'll add pricing for now. Change the font size. Change the color and the weight of the font. Make sure it's a link, of course. And then we can see it already actually adds the styling, but we can change the styling of the link. So we're going to add a new style. We're going to rename it to footer link or footer links. And then we're going to change the color because we don't want all our footer links to be blue. Change the hover color as well. Add in the transition. Great, looks much better. Now we can copy and paste our footer link multiple times. We can start changing the text. Then we can copy that over. Copy it over again. And that is our links for the footer. And we're going to add a sort of copyright section below the grid. All rights reserved sort of stuff. Name it copyright like so. Copy and paste our copyright logo, copyright icon. Add some padding above our copyright section. Then we're going to change the padding of our footer itself because there's a lot of padding here. We'll make sure it's 30 below. Reduce the padding above to. Change the width of our copyright text to 100% to make sure it's left aligned, and then make sure to give our copyright section a max width of 1200 to fit the rest of the website. Now we're going to make our footer a component. So we're going to create component, right click, because we want it to be responsive. And of course, we're going to be using this across the website. Now we're going to make our website responsive. So we're going to add some breakpoints. We're going to add the tablet breakpoint. We can see our tablet version and we can see it doesn't really look right. We need to start adjusting a few things to make sure that it looks good on tablet and then ultimately looks good on phone as well. So we're going to first adjust our container for our hero, make it 100% width, adjust the width, the max width to 1240 and add some padding left and right. We'll add 20 padding left and right like so. And then I ended up actually scrolling down straight to the call to action section and making adjustments to that before I got onto the rest of the website. So yeah, just adjusting the call to action section to not have as much padding on the tablet version. And now we're going to adjust our hero text section, change the padding at the top to 60. Next up, we're going to fix our browser image because we can see it doesn't really look right here. The sort of width of it is being compressed. It hasn't scaled down like it should when resizing the screen. So we're going to make sure that the browser image itself, the image itself is set to fill and the height is locked with the fill. You can see the blue icon. And then we're going to choose the browser image container, the stack that it's in, and we're going to set the height for this at fixed and we're going to lock it. And now we can see that has scaled down on our tablet version as well. We're going to change the padding above our browser image on the tablet version to 40. And then we're going to go down to our features section here and adjust the padding for this as well, because I think there's a bit too much on the tablet version. And then we're going to adjust our grid here. So with the grid selected, we're going to change the type to stack rather than grid. And then we're going to change the direction to vertical. We're going to start adjusting the width of our rows, our columns in the grid. We'll make the connectivity one fill like so. And then we'll do the same with the all of the functions as well. So we'll change that to fill. So we can see our image for the connectivity just doesn't look right. So we're actually going to hide it, remove it from the tablet version. And then we're going to choose the image container and we're going to choose fill and we're going to choose image and put an image in there instead. And we can see now it fills that section. We're going to change the positioning of it to top center and that looks much, much better. And this is more what I want it to look like. We're going to add some padding above our small features section. And then we're going to change the gap of our small features section to 30. Make it one row. And then our call to action section, change the padding of that to 20 on the left and with the right and the left. And now that's looking much better on the tablet version of the website. And now we want to adjust our footer to make sure it's also responsive. So we're going to go into the footer, we're going to double click into it and we're going to make a new variant of our footer. We're going to change the width of this to 800. And then we're going to choose our grid. Change the advanced settings of our grid. Then we're going to change the width to 130. Change the gap to 20. Rename this variant to tablet. Then we're going to make another variant and call it mobile. We'll change the width of this to 400 and we can already see it looks great for mobile as well. Then with our footer selected, we can just choose tablet for our variant. And there we are. It fits much better on the tablet version. We're going to go back up to our large features section and change the gap between the features to 40. and then change the padding for both right and left to 20. And then next up, before we go into the mobile version, we're going to quickly set some styles for our website so that when we adjust these styles later on, they'll be adjusted across the whole website. So I'd recommend doing this once you have a specific style done. Maybe you've done a homepage or something like that, and you know what font sizes you're going to have, you know the styling, the colors, things like that. I'd recommend having text styles so that, again, you can go back, change it for one, and then it changes it across the whole website rather than having to go through every single page and change them all manually. Now let's add our phone breakpoint / mobile breakpoint, and we can see this definitely needs some work, and we can see the navigation especially just doesn't look right. So when I mentioned earlier in the video that I ended up changing this navigation to a frame is built in one, this is exactly what I do here. So we end up going to insert, we choose their drop down navigation, top drop down menu, drag that in, put it above our current navigation, delete our current navigation, and then we just change the text, the logos, the links of the Framer menu, which is pretty easy to do. I ended up forwarding all of this because it's pretty standard. I just changed the text of the menu itself. And there we are. Now our navigation works great and it's responsive on mobile. Let's start adjusting the rest of our website, making sure that it's fit for mobile. And because we chose a text style for the heading, we can now go into there, we can choose that text style, and we can add breakpoints. You can have large, medium, and small for each of those breakpoints. And this is fantastic because now you can have different font sizes, different font styling for each of those breakpoints. So we can see here for large, medium, small, it's automatically scaled the font sizes for us, but then we can also manually change them if we want to as well. We're going to do the same for our subtext, add breakpoints, make sure we're happy with it. And again, I think it's a bit too small, so we're going to make it a bit bigger for the small size breakpoint, make it a bit larger for the medium sized breakpoint as well. Our input needs to be responsive. We're going to actually change the layout of this to vertical. It doesn't fit, so of course we need to change the width of this to 100% like so. Then we're going to change the input width itself to 100%. Boom, looks much better. So we can see here our section title for the feature section, experimental and creative, doesn't fit on our mobile section. But what you can do here is sometimes rather than just going into the mobile version and changing it there, I actually like to go back to the desktop version and make sure that I'm making it responsive there so that it then trickles down to the tablet and phone version. So we're going to select our desktop version here and we're going to make it 100%. And instantly we can see it now fits on our mobile version as well. We're going to add breakpoints to our heading for this section. We're going to add breakpoints for our headings for the features as well. Change the font sizes because I think they're a bit too small, like so. Change the letter spacing as well. Add breakpoints to our body small text too. Again, just a bit too small, so we're going to resize it a little bit. Make sure our image fits as well. Adjust the width of this. Adjust the padding of our text. Bit too much padding, I think. We'll make it 20 all around. There we go, that looks much better. Change the gap as well to 20. Do the same for our other feature section. And then of course we need to make our small features responsive here. So we're going to change the layout of this to stack and then vertical. Change the width of each of these features to fill. And then add some padding around, so 20 right, 20 left, and 30 above. And yeah, that looks much better. Now we're going to do the same for our call to action section. Change the font size for this. We're not actually going to add a text style to this because I don't anticipate reusing this. So we're just going to adjust it directly in here. Make sure it's set to fill. Center align the text. Change the padding for this. Bit too much, 40 above, 40 below. 10 to the right, 10 to the left. Change the gap as well to 10. Reduce the padding above just to make it a bit more even looking. And yeah, that is our homepage ready. Our desktop version, tablet version, phone version, all ready to go, all responsive. Looks great.